You will see how Senator Blumenthal tried to corner Attorney General Pam Bondi using a social media post and a dinner photograph. I'll show you the most crucial moment of this showdown at the very end. Wait until the end of the video to see it. To understand how Blumenthal set the trap, you need to see that first moment.
What you're about to hear is more than a tense exchange between a senator and an attorney general. It goes to the heart of a larger democratic question. How independent should law enforcement be from presidential influence? And how much transparency does the public deserve when legal decisions carry political consequences? In hearings like this, refusals, redirects, and carefully chosen wording are never just rhetorical choices. They shape how accountability is understood. As you watch, ask yourself, is this a principled defense of institutional boundaries, or a strategic effort to avoid a direct answer?
Watch how it all began.
I'd like to know from you what conversations you've had with President Trump about the indictment of James Comey.
Senator, I am not going to discuss any conversations I have or have not had with the President of the United
States. See that
you're an attorney, you have a law degree, and you know that I'm not going to do that. I also find it fascinating, because I'll keep fighting to ensure that law enforcement and the judicial process move forward without political interference. No one is above the law, not even the president. That's a quote from you, Senator Blumenthal, in 2017.
Well, let me ask you then, when you saw that
No
post,
one is above the law. That was your quote.
When you saw that post, did you talk to anybody in the White House?
I am not going to discuss any conversations I have, nor any investigations, nor
you are unwilling to tell this committee
cases
about conversations with the White House
and if I
regarding
may
James
continue,
Comey's indictment.
and if I may
Let me
continue,
show you a picture.
James Comey was indicted.
That refusal didn't end the line of questioning. It amplified it. When an attorney general declines to confirm or deny a direct conversation with the president regarding a high-profile legal case, the scrutiny only increases. And Senator Blumenthal, a former state attorney general himself, knew exactly what that refusal meant as a matter of law and as a matter of politics. He asked a direct question and received a structured non-answer, setting the stage for an even sharper confrontation later in the hearing. Bondi's countermove in those first minutes was notable. She did not simply stonewall. She reached into Blumenthal's own record and pulled out a quote from 2017, a statement he had made about the rule of law, and she aimed it back at him. The implication was clear, that the senator's current line of questioning existed in tension with his own prior commitments. Blumenthal did not take the bait directly. He redirected. He asked again about the White House. Bondi held her position. It became a standoff, where neither side was willing to back down. The dynamic shifted when Blumenthal introduced the dinner photograph, bringing it up exactly at the right moment. The night before James Comey's indictment, he noted, Bondi had been at dinner with the President of the United States, not a sprawling state event, a dinner. He wanted to know whether Comey had been discussed at that table. Bondi's response was immediate and, to observers, striking. She said she loved the photograph. She called it a great picture. She acknowledged the seating arrangement, confirmed that the president had been 2 seats away from her, and then she declined, again, to say what was or was not discussed. Blumenthal pressed. He stated on the record that he was taking her non-confirmation as a yes. The Attorney General responded by noting that the entire cabinet had been present. She offered the size of the gathering as a kind of answer. That is the structure Blumenthal was working against throughout this exchange. Every specific question he asked, Bondi answered with either a refusal grounded in privilege and procedure, or a reframe that expanded the context until the original question became harder to isolate. It is a technique that experienced witnesses in high-pressure hearings often deploy, and Bondi deployed it consistently. Whether that technique is a legitimate exercise of executive discretion or an evasion of accountability is a question that reasonable people can interpret differently.
This is the point where viewers should separate what is proven from what is implied. A dinner photograph can establish proximity, but it cannot by itself confirm what was discussed. A refusal to answer may heighten suspicion, but it is not, on its own, evidence of wrongdoing. At the same time, oversight hearings exist precisely because public officials are expected to answer hard questions about possible influence, conflicts, and decision-making. So two things can be true at once. A witness may invoke procedure or discretion, and lawmakers may still be justified in pressing for clarity. Which matters more here, legal defensibility or public transparency?
Blumenthal kept returning and narrowing his focus, looking for a specific question she couldn't deflect. Then the subject shifted. The senator moved away from Comey and toward the question of DOJ reform. He outlined proposed legislation, a statutory right of action for people subject to selective or malicious prosecution, a codification of the DOJ manual's prohibitions on political considerations in charging decisions, restrictions on White House intervention in prosecutorial decisions, grand jury process reforms, transparency requirements. He asked Bondi directly whether she would support that kind of reform. Her response did not engage the legislation on its merits. Instead, she deflected by shifting the focus to the current administration and a recently released report regarding the president's family. Blumenthal cut across her, then walked it back. He said he was not going to get in the gutter. He said he wanted to be constructive. He moved to the next topic, before the exchange over Hunter Biden had time to fully develop. That pivot was significant, not because of what Blumenthal said, but because of what Bondi said as he was pivoting away. As the senator moved to the subject of mergers and antitrust, Bondi made a sharp, personal counterattack. She brought up past controversies regarding Blumenthal's military service claims. The statement was sharp. It landed in the record, and Blumenthal kept moving. The moment that was still ahead in this hearing would not let any of this go unanswered. What was coming, as the exchange moved deeper into the territory of corporate mergers and lobbying relationships, would take everything that had been building, the refusals, the deflections, the personal insertions, and bring it all to a point. The mergers section of the exchange had a different pace. Blumenthal moved fast, naming several deals: a home healthcare agency merger, the Skydance and Paramount transaction, the Transportation Department's rule on airline compensation. He tied them together with an argument about the administration's claims on corporate consolidation. Bondi struggled initially to keep up with the pace of the listing. She noted that he had given her many mergers at once. She asked which one he wanted to focus on. He focused on the American Express and GBT merger. Specifically, he raised the name of Brian Ballard, a longtime political ally of President Trump and the head of the law firm where Bondi herself had previously worked. Blumenthal's contention was that Ballard had been instrumental in lobbying the Justice Department to drop its lawsuit challenging that merger. The suit had been dismissed. There was no pending court review. Blumenthal wanted to know what conversations Bondi had had with Ballard. The question was still being asked. The exchange was still in motion. And what was seconds away would mark the sharpest moment in the entire hearing between these two people. The moment where the substance of the mergers discussion dropped away entirely, and what remained was something rawer and more direct than anything that had come before. Bondi's answer began with a statement of disbelief. She said she could not believe Blumenthal would accuse her of impropriety. Blumenthal said he was not accusing her of impropriety, that he was asking about conversations. Bondi continued. She returned, again and with more force this time, to the question of his military service. And then, it stopped being a Senate hearing in the conventional sense. It became something else.
Senator Blumenthal, I cannot believe that you would accuse me of impropriety when you lied about your military service.
I am
you
not
lied.
asking
You
you.
admitted you
I am
lied
not
to be
accusing you
elected
of
a U.S. senator.
impropriety. I'm
You
asking
lied.
you
How
about
dare you? I'm a
conversations
career prosecutor.
with Mr.
Don't you
Ballard,
ever challenge my integrity.
had
I have
apparently-
abided by every ethics standard. Do not question my ability to be fair and impartial as Attorney General, and anything
You'll
with
answer that
my
question to
former
another of my
firm,
colleagues.
Ballard Partners.
Thank you.
What that exchange revealed was not simply a loss of composure on one side or a tactical maneuver on the other. It revealed where both of them actually were. beneath the procedural surface of a Senate hearing. Blumenthal had spent the preceding minutes building a specific argument that a lobbyist with deep personal ties to the Attorney General had influenced a DOJ decision that financially benefited a major corporation, and that Bondi had not disclosed or recused herself from any relevant process. He wanted a direct answer to a direct question. He did not get one. What he got instead was a return to the most contested episode of his own public career. Bondi's invocation of his military service record was not incidental. She had raised it once before in the hearing, briefly, as he was moving between topics. The second time, in response to the Ballard question, she pressed it harder. The words were blunt. You lied. You admitted you lied. This was not a procedural deflection. It was a frontal assault on his standing to ask the question at all. Blumenthal's response was to hold his position. He did not abandon the question. He did not engage the personal accusation directly. He kept naming Ballard. He kept trying to finish his sentence. The fact that he eventually said, "You'll answer that question through another, my colleague," suggests he understood the moment had closed, that the answer was not coming from Bondi in that exchange. But he had placed the question on the record. The significance of what happened in that room runs in two directions. On one side, Blumenthal constructed a line of questioning designed to establish a specific pattern. That the Justice Department under Bondi had made decisions on enforcement and prosecution that aligned with the political and personal interests of the president and those close to him, and that those decisions had not been made transparently or independently. He named names. He cited specific actions. He connected specific dots. On the other side, Bondi held a consistent position throughout the entire exchange. She declined to discuss conversations with the president. She declined to discuss pending matters. She declined to discuss personnel decisions. She characterized the grand jury that indicted Comey as ideologically biased. She raised the Biden administration's handling of its own son's legal situation as a counterpoint to the weaponization argument. And when the question of Ballard arrived, she went further than deflection. She challenged Blumenthal's credibility directly and personally. That challenge, "How dare you, and don't you ever challenge my integrity," will not be easily forgotten by people who watch this hearing. Those are not the words of a witness running out the clock. Those are the words of someone who had reached a limit and decided to name it. Whether that limit was genuine outrage, strategic calculation, or some combination of both, is something only Bondi knows. What the record shows is that the question about Ballard went unanswered, and the exchange ended with the senator thanking her and moving on. The subject of this hearing, the integrity of the Department of Justice, and the question of political influence over its decisions, is not resolved by what happened between these two people. It is sharpened by it. Every refusal to answer is a statement in itself. The specific path this exchange took, moving from the Comey case to the dinner, then to antitrust issues and the Ballard connection, and the way it abruptly ended, tells you something.
In the end, this exchange stands out not simply because it became personal, but because it exposed a deeper tension between political theater and institutional accountability. Blumenthal tried to build a record suggesting possible political influence and unanswered conflicts, while Bondi framed the questioning as an attack on her ethics, professionalism, and credibility. For viewers, the most important takeaway is this: strong rhetoric can shape public perception, but real accountability depends on verifiable facts, full disclosure, and whether key questions are ever answered clearly. What do you think this hearing ultimately revealed? Principled resistance, strategic deflection, or both? If you value balanced, fact-based analysis, like the video, share your view in the comments, and subscribe for more thoughtful breakdowns of the stories shaping public life.
About what both people came into that room prepared to do and what they were each ultimately willing to say. That is how a standard hearing turns into a personal standoff. Blumenthal laid the trap, but Bondi refused to step into it, choosing to push back instead. Now, I want to hear from you. Who do you think won this exchange? Did Bondi's strategy work, or did Blumenthal successfully expose a flaw? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you want to see more breakdowns of intense political moments like this, make sure to hit the subscribe button and like the video. See you in the next one.